Mr. Speaker, will you please call the House to order, sir?
The House will come to order. In the absence of clergy, let us pause for a moment of silence. Visitors are invited to join the members in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A quorum being present, the clerk will read the journal of Friday, March 25th.
Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Morelli.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to dispense with a further reading of the Journal of Friday, March 25th, and that the same stand approved.
Without objection, so ordered. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Speaker, colleagues. On what promised to be the beginning of a very exciting and busy week, let me take a moment before I give our schedule for the day to just note a couple of items that have occurred on this day in history, March 28th. For instance, today is Dingus Day, so happy Dingus Day to everyone. Dingus Day is a Polish Catholic holiday that marked the baptism of Polish Prince Mieszko in 966 A.D. on Easter Monday and has evolved into celebrating the end of the observance of Lent and beginning of spring. Today, Buffalo, New York has the distinction of throwing one of the largest and most popular Dingus Day celebrations in the country. On this day in 1982, the first ever women's basketball championship, the NCAA, was played. Louisiana Tech defeated Cheney University. We decided it was Cheney University, not Cheney State. It won the championship, beating Cheney University by 76-62. And on this day in 1990, President George H.W. Bush posthumously awarded Jesse Owens the Congressional Medal of Honor. Honoring Owens as an American Olympic hero who raced in the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, winning the 100, 200, and 400-meter relay and triumphing over Adolf Hitler's theory of the superiority of a master race. And there's obviously a lot of attention given to that great athlete, Jesse Owens. With that, let me give an outline of our schedule for the day. Members have on their desks a main calendar. There are 15 new bills on the calendar, beginning with calendar number 452 and ending with 466. After any introductions and housekeeping, we will be taking up the new bills on consent. We will continue to work on bills off consent from the Rules Report from last week, including Rules Report 6, the Debt Service Bill, and Rules Reports 13 through 19, and then we'll continue our consent beginning on calendar number 271. Members of the following committee should be aware that we will be shortly calling a meeting off the floor of the Ways and Means Committee. So those members should pay close attention to announcements. And as the day proceeds, Mr. Speaker, we'll also give any updates on the need for party conferences as they may occur. I'd ask members to clearly be attentive this week in the chambers, be listening for announcements of conference, of committee meetings, etc. As I said, this promises to be a busy week. So with this as a general outline, Mr. Speaker, if there are any introductions and housekeeping, this would be the appropriate time to take them up.
No housekeeping or introductions at the moment, Mr. Morelli.
We could just hold on one second, Mr. Speaker. I understand there is an introduction, an important one, and then right after that we'll go to resolutions.
Absolutely. Mr. Rea, for the purposes of a introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a great pleasure that I rise. Thank you for allowing me to interrupt the proceedings of the House. It's with great pleasure that I rise to recognize somebody that's and a family that's no stranger to this House. We have joining us Debbie Conti, Jeffrey, and Sam. For those of you that remember our dear departed colleague, Jim Conti, this is his family, part of his family, and they are joining us this week to discuss organ donation that, as many of you know, it was a very, very important issue to Assemblyman Conti. Jim was a two-time kidney recipient, and it's because of organ donations that Jimmy was allowed to serve in this House for so many, many, many years and really have such great accomplishments in this House. Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, Jimmy lost his battle with cancer that very well could have been associated with that organ donation. But the years that he got to spend with his family and with his friends and colleagues here in this House, the People's House, that he loves so well and so much, are years that we're all very, very thankful for. Assemblyman Lupinacci, who unfortunately is not here with us right now, he is en route, has succeeded Mr. Conti, Jimmy Conti, and has done a wonderful job carrying the banner and continuing many of those fights that Jimmy had, both on a local level and on a state level. So I ask that you please give all the cordialities of the House to this wonderful family, and let us all take a moment to reflect upon Jim Conti, who was really part of the fabric of this institution for so many, many years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Assemblymember Rivera, same subject.
I also rise to welcome the family to this chambers. I will always remember him. I have said this before. He was the only leader till today. When I pass over 2 minutes, he would shut off my microphone. I can never forget him. And then I enjoy whenever we celebrated in this town, his life and dedication to the state of New York. So welcome. I'd like to see you. And if you want to know what I'm talking about, it's in my old video that I did of that particular celebration that we had here. Thank you.
Mr. Lento, on the same subject.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to welcome the Conti family here today and tell them that it's been a while now, but we still remember. And Jim Conti was one of the gentlemen that I had the privilege of serving with in this House for many years. And there wasn't a guy that was better than he, who gave you his word and kept it no matter what. And we miss him dearly, and you've had good leadership since then, but he was hard to match, and we miss him very much. Thank you very much for coming.
Ms. Corwin, for same subject.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honor and a privilege to have Jim's family here today. As many of you remember, Jim sat in this chair for many years before I was in this chair, and I've always been in awe of how well he did leading our side of the aisle in many of the issues that we would take up. He was absolutely beloved by his staff people and certainly by all the members on this side of the aisle. So please extend my welcome to them as well, please.
Ms. Hooper on the same subject.
Mr. Speaker, I wish to join my colleagues and acknowledge the family of the late Jim Conte. He and I were elected the same year. We were in the same class. He was a very distinguished statesman, highly respected, and was quite articulate on the issues that confronted him. I applaud you and welcome you to the chamber, and I think of him often because the five of us came here together. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Roth on the same subject.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just briefly, as my colleague, Mr. Rea, mentioned, Jim Conte's legacy truly does live on here, and one of those ways is on the issue of organ donation that so many of us have become passionate about because of his advocacy. Very quickly, earlier this year, I had a constituent who got a kidney from his daughter, who was of college age, and I had the opportunity to present to her the New York State Gift of Life Medal, and I was proud to do so in Jim's memory and telling the people that night at one of our local meetings where we presented this medal about Jim's legacy, about his advocacy on the issue, and really about his story. And there were a couple of really nice articles written locally in the media that mentioned Jim. So that's one small way I think that we all have the opportunity to carry his legacy forward. So when you hear those stories locally about somebody, there's something set up that Jim was integral to called the Gift of Life Medal, and that's available to all of us to recognize constituents who step up to the plate, whether it's for a family member or for a friend or a complete stranger when they're in need of an organ donation. So I thank all of our colleagues who continue to make that issue a priority, and welcome the Conte family here today. Thank you.
Assemblymember Graff on the same subject.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell the family that Jim was in charge when there were 19 of us came in one swarm. And he had a tough enough job at the time. And then he had to deal with us and try to keep us in check. And he did a great job in doing it. You know, I appreciated Jim being the leader when I first got here. And he was the heart and soul at that time of our conference. So in Jim's memory, I just want to thank you for coming here today, we just wanted to express how much Jim meant to us.
Mr. Lupinacci.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to also welcome the Contes, people I've known for decades now and have a great affinity for. I was an intern for Assemblyman Conte, and over the past, since the year 2000, I've got to know the family very well, seen Sarah grown up from diapers now to a senior at Huntington High School, and of course Jeff, who we're very proud now in the engineering field, and Mrs. Conte, who has become a great friend not only to the Lupinaccis, but to everyone around her to get to know and learn of all the great things that Assemblyman Conte has done. And I know that even though Assemblyman Conte's passed for over 4 years now, and I had the ability to succeed him, we're always discussing his legacy with the family. His family's always in touch with my office. They've become a good part of my family, and I know how proud he would be to see how great and all the good work that we continue to do in New York State in organ donation, public education, and continuing a lot of the things that he battled to do so many great things for. So it's great, and welcome back to the chamber again. We know that the family's always welcome in here, especially when we have great public servants like Assemblyman Conte, and especially that now we are going up into April 1st, and we're going into Donate Life Month, and we know how important this month was coming up to Assemblyman Conte. So we'll continue to do the hard work and follow in his footsteps to make sure that, we continue to climb in the area of organ donation. So just wanted to make sure that we, of course, to extend the privileges of the floor to him, to his family today. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of Mr. Rea, Mr. Rivera, Mr. Lentol, Ms. Corwin, Ms. Hooper, Mr. Ra, Mr. Graff, Mr. Lupinacci, and also myself, because Jim, early in my career, was supportive of a bill that I passed, which proposed assistance to those who were getting bone marrow transplants. And so he accepted and worked with me across the aisle to make that happen. It was the hallmark of a man who saw more than just arbitrary lines. He saw human beings wherever they were and whatever need they have. So on behalf of all of those members, the Speaker, and all the members, we welcome you here to the New York State Assembly. You are family. You are always welcome here, and we are so delighted you've taken the time to come and visit with us and help us remember a great man. Thank you so very much. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir. Before we begin our resolutions, I'd ask members of the Ways and Means Committee to go to the Speaker's conference room. I know Mr. Farrell is awaiting members of the Ways and Means Committee.
Ways and Means Speaker's conference room. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir. If we could now go to page 3 of the main calendar and begin our work with resolutions, beginning with Assembly Resolution 1114 by Mrs. Gunther.
Clerk will read.
Assembly Resolution Number 1114, Mrs. Gunther, legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim March 2016 as Brain Injury Awareness Month in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Assembly Resolution Number 1115, Mr. Brindisi, legislative resolution memorializing Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim March 2016 as Youth Art Month in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Assembly Resolution Number 1116, Mr. Murray, legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim March 2016 as Deep Vein Thrombosis Awareness Month in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Assembly Resolution Number 1117, Mrs. Markey, legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim April 2016 as Child Sexual Abuse Prevention Month in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted.
Assembly Resolution Number 1118, Mr. Didisco, legislative resolution memorializing Governor Andrew M. Cuomo to proclaim April 9th, 2016 as Yellow Ribbon Day in the state of New York.
On the resolution, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir. As I indicated earlier, I'd like to begin on page 52 of the main calendar and take up calendar number 452 by Ms. Paulin on consent.
Clerk will read.
Assembly Number 47A, Calendar 452, Ms. Paulin, an act to amend the penal law.
Read the last section.
This act shall take effect on the 90th day.
Clerk will record the vote. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, this is our first vote of the day. Members should quickly cast their votes so we can move on. Anyone who is still not in the chamber, I'd encourage them to come so they may participate in our first vote of the day.
First vote of the day. Members, please come to the chamber and cast your vote.